Alright, so this is for the assignment Buttons and Tweens. If you look in Canvas, you'll see Buttons and Tweens. Okay? So you're going to create an ActionScript 3.0. It's very important that that's the one you choose. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call this layer the text layer. And I'm going to insert a blank keyframe on 2. So frame 2, insert blank keyframe. That's because I want frame 1 to be empty. Frame 2 is where I'm going to actually draw something. So you can just type, whatever. Any word you'd like to choose is fine. Just make sure that it is not black or gray. So here's my word, huzzah. And I'm going to, with it selected, do Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste. And then I'll turn this one to either a dark gray or a black, some sort of shadow color. And it's on top, so if I right-click on it, arrange, send to back, it's now below. And I'll just move it, position it until it looks like it's a shadow. Okay, so we've got this nice shadow going on. With that text still selected, if you look in your properties, you should see the option for filters. And then there's this drop down with a plus sign. If I click on that, I have the option to blur it. If you look, you can already see it's a little fuzzy on the edges. You can, bump it up a little bit, like 8 is good. And it makes it look a little more shadowy. I wouldn't really go much higher than 10, but it does kind of depend on the size of the text that you created. It shouldn't be too small though, because the main focus of our animation is going to be this. Okay, so add that filter to it, and now I'm going to select both. Go up to Modify, Convert to Symbol, and I want to make sure that this is a graphic symbol, and I'll just name it accordingly to what my word was. Huzzah! Registration in the middle is always good default. Okay. So now it is a symbol. Now I'm going to go to frame 45 and insert a frame. And then I'm going to go ahead and create a motion tween. So I've got this motion tween. And I want to, on frame 2, I need to click on the text itself so that I have my color effect options. If you're clicked anywhere else, like if I just click on the frame, you'll see that that option disappears. So you make sure you're on frame 2, but then you click on the text itself. Go to alpha, and I'm going to go set it to 0% on the alpha, so it disappears. Then I'm going to go to frame 30. That's 31, so I'll go back one. I'm going to go to frame 30, click on the text itself so that you see you have alpha again, and I'm going to bring it back up to 100%. So now you should see that it just goes from not being there to fading in, which is exactly what we want. Okay, and that's all we're doing with that one. So I'm going to lock it just so I don't accidentally draw on the wrong thing, and I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to name it Buttons. So I'm going to just use the rectangle tool. Those colors are just fine. You can make this a large button, a small button. It's totally up to you. Kind of a handy thing, if you go to View and turn on Rulers, you can see, those little red lines? That's showing me where this is. And they're also on the side, if you see up and down, side to side. So you can kind of use that to have a better way of kind of centering your objects. And then I'm going to use the text again. And I'm going to go ahead and say play. If I select all of it, I can then go to Modify, Align, Horizontal Center. It disappears, don't worry. Modify, Align, Vertical Center. But then when I click away, it's still there. Now I need to select both of them again. Go to Modify, Convert to Symbol, and this time I want to switch to a button. This is very important. Make sure you switch it to a button. And then I'll call it Play. Okay, and it is on frame 1. I actually want it to disappear on frame 2 when our animation starts. So I'm going to right click and insert a blank keyframe on 2. So all I've got is Play, and then my animation plays. Okay? now I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call it Actions with a capital A, Actions. This is where we start to get into kind of some basic code. So if I go to Actions, and right now if I went to Control and Test Scene, you'll see that it starts up right away, so you almost don't, the button just flashes and then it's gone. I want this to stop and wait for me to push the button before it plays. So if I go to Window and I pull up Actions, it brings up this box and it says Actions 1, meaning I'm on the Actions layer, frame 1, which is what you want. And I'm going to type in the word stop, and it needs to be lowercase. Do an opening parenthesis, closing parenthesis, and then a semicolon. Very important that there's no capitalization, no spaces, and that this is a semicolon. Now if I go to my Control and Test Scene, it stops. It won't start playing until I tell it to. I haven't actually told my button to do anything yet though, so right now nothing's happening. Okay, so I'm just going to minimize my actions and move it over here for now. And I need to select my button that's called Play. And in order to apply actions to a button, I have to give it what's called an instance name, which is up here in Properties. No lowercase, no spaces. So I'm just going to do lowercase play underscore BTN, because it does need to be named something different than what you named the original button. So play button. And there I go. Now I can go up to Window and do Code Snippets. Flash doesn't make you write all the code from scratch. It does some of it for you, or it will do some of it for you if you don't want to write it yourself. So inside the ActionScript folder, inside of Timeline Navigation, there's these lists. Now when I click on this button, I want it to go to a frame and play. So I'm going to double click this click to go to frame and play. And it brings up my actions. In fact, now I have two, so I can close that one. Whoops. If you lose your actions, just open up actions. Okay, so on actions frame 1, everything in gray is telling me what to do and how to do it. So it's telling me that, you know, by clicking on this symbol, it's going to go to a certain frame in the timeline. And it's also telling you to replace the number 5 in the code below with the frame you would like the playhead to go to. So right here it says go to and play 5. That means right now if I clicked on my button, it's going to go to frame 5 and start playing. Well, our animation starts on frame 2. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch that 5 to a 2. And then I'm going to test my scene. It's very important that you test your scene anytime you add new code. Otherwise, if something messes up, you won't know exactly which code it was that screwed it up. So you click on play and it should go and do your animation. And then it goes back to the beginning. So I'll minimize my code snippets and stick them over here too. Alright, now what we want to happen next is we want it to get to the end and we want it to stop playing. So I need to go to my actions layer and insert a blank keyframe on frame 45. That allows me to put actions in there. So then when I open my actions button, I'm going to put a stop again, meaning that the animation will play until 45 and then it will stop. So lowercase, opening, closing parenthesis, semicolon. Test your scene. Play, huzzah, it stops, which is exactly what you want. Now we need to make a button. So I'm going to come to my buttons layer and I'm going to insert a blank keyframe. And now I'm going to draw a new button. So I'll make it look like the other one does, but maybe bigger so that it covers up this word. I'll make your button, and then I'm just going to have it say restart. You could put game over, start over, continue, whatever you want to do. Okay, now make sure your text layer is locked. That way when you click and drag across this, it's not going to accidentally select your text. So that text layer needs to be locked, because the only thing that should get selected is this rectangle and my word restart. Now I'm going to go ahead and go to Modify, Convert to Symbol. It's a button, which is what I want. I'll name it Restart, and OK. Now before I can add any code to this button, I need to change the instance name. So I'll just restart underscore BTN. You'll also see where it says button, so if you accidentally turned yours into a movie clip or a graphic, you can click on button and it'll switch. Alright, it's still selected, which is what I want. So now I'm going to go to my code snippets. And I've, action script folder, timeline navigation. If you closed out of your code snippets, remember you can go to window, and there they are, code snippets. Now I want the restart button to take me back to the beginning, and then I want it to stop. So I would click to go to frame and stop. So I'll double click on that one, and it brings up the actions. Same thing as before, tell it which frame to go to. Well, the play button is on frame 1, so that's what I want, is frame 1. And now I will do control, test scene. So play button is clicked, huzzah, restart. And then it goes back to play. So it should just be able to loop. Nothing goes without clicking though, that's the key. Everything should stop. So if you're having any troubles, make sure when you look over here, you should just see actions frame 1, a stop that is blue. If it's not blue, it probably means there's a capitalization in there or a mistake. And then you've got this play button. There's that instance we gave it. Go to play. So then same thing when we go to actions 45. It's a restart button, but there is that stop, and it's going to frame 1. Okay? And that is it for that. So file, publish settings. I don't need HTML, I just need Flash. I need to make sure I know where it's going, and I'm going to call this Buttons and Tween. Oops, buttons. Save it, hit publish, and then OK. And that is what you'll turn in right here. And if you need to check, make sure the rubric, the animation should not be starting on its own. There is a play button that when it's clicked, it starts your animation. You've got your text word that isn't visible, but then it fades in. Your animation should stop at the end, and then there's a button to start over. When that restart button or start over button is clicked, your animation starts over, and then make sure it is turned in as a .swif. And if all those things are good, then you are good to turn that in, and you're done. Nice job.